Let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. If I could please get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Whoa.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, what?
If the council could consider adding the City Hall action plan to the agenda.
I will amend my motion
Thank you.
to include the City Hall action plan to the agenda.
Good
And
call.
I'll amend my second.
There's a motion to the amendment and a second to the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brent. Good point. We are to number 4. We have a high school student presentation. Please come on up and introduce yourself. Don't be nervous. The Hartmans are right behind you. Max, I love your necklace.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amanda Borwidge, and thank you for having me. And I'm a senior at Chanhassen High School, and I've lived in Carver my whole life. And today,
And how old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay.
Today, I'm going to talk to you about monarch butterflies. It would go
I like butterflies,
this one.
and I cannot lie.
Okay. As many of you know, the bees are dying at alarmingly fast rates, but many do not know that the monarch butterfly population is in much worse shape. The monarch's population has decreased by 90% in the last 20 years, and before we know it, our state insect could be gone. Monarch populations are facing many risks across the United States. In 1997, the monarch population was at 1,250,000, and as of 2010, there are less than 10,000 left. To put this into perspective, this would be equivalent to Minneapolis losing 1/4 of its population over the past 19 years. Steps need to be taken almost immediately to ensure that the monarch butterfly does not go extinct. The longer this problem of our pollinators being left unattended to, the harder and bigger the problem will be in the long run. For my capstone project, I chose to research monarch butterflies and came up with a solution for how to help bring their populations back up. I worked with members of the Monarch Joint Ventures organization at the University of Minnesota and came to the conclusion that by the city of Carver taking the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, we could play a crucial role in saving this beautiful species. The Mayor's Monarch Pledge is a list of 25 actions that can be completed towards conservation, education, and public policy. However, only 3 need to be completed in order to take the pledge. The National Wildlife Federation states that monarch scientists attribute the decline to degradation and loss of summer breeding habitats in the U.S. This means that this is our problem to fix, and Carver's efforts could make a huge impact. Carver is home to 6 parks and a dozen of trails along the Minnesota River. This land is already protected, and it is essentially a sanctuary for monarch butterflies. An easy step to take is planting milkweed, which is a monarch's main habitat. Monarchs cannot survive without milkweed, and this is the caterpillar's only source of food. Milkweed is essentially free to purchase, so this is an action that would only be beneficial. Another step that can be taken in the pledge is to integrate monarch butterfly conservation into the city's parks master plan or other city plans. The best thing about monarch conservation is that their conservation will also benefit other pollinators such as bees and plants and animals as well. Those are a few examples of the steps that you can take within the pledge. The pledge process is actually really easy to take. All you have to do is take the pledge, specify your actions, take action within a year, and report your progress by taking a quick survey. There's also a map online to show what steps each city has taken towards the pledge, and almost 20 cities in Minnesota have taken the pledge, and they are great examples as for what actions to take. It's in Carver's mission statement to protect our resources and plan for the future. By taking this pledge, you can do both of those. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider taking the Mayor's Monarch Pledge or implementing a pollinator-friendly plan.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
All right, so my first question is, where and how do we get the free milkweed?
There's resources on the Monarch Joint Venture, which is this, and you can also find the Mayor's Monarch Pledge on there, and there's also on the National Wildlife Federation. I'm pretty sure they're free, or you just have to pay for like the stamp to get them to where they need to go.
Okay, my second question is this is a research project for your senior project.
Mm-hmm.
How committed to this are you?
I've been researching this since the second semester, which was like the end of January, and I'm in the process of writing a 10-page paper on monarchs and their conservation.
Okay, so you're working on education. What if we talked amongst ourselves and at our next city council meeting, talked about the possibility of having you be our city representative of the mayor's challenge, Monarch Pledge, and turned our city with the resources that we have behind you as the director of our mayor's challenge on behalf of the city of Carver. We would talk about that and vote on it as a council, and then you run the Monarch Butterfly everything for the city of Carver.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, that's something to consider that we'll put on the agenda and we'll talk about.
I think that is an incredibly good idea.
Thank you.
So you said you've been working with the U of M, is that correct?
Yeah, this program, they're at the U of M.
Okay, so I actually work for the U of M, and I work at the Landscape Arboretum. Have you been out to see the new Bee and Pollinator Center that they just finished?
I have not.
So if you're writing a paper on this, I would suggest coming out to the Arboretum. And if we can get each other's information, I can take you up there and I can get you linked with someone who can give you a good tour of that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
For the
Thanks.
record, if I offered that, they would all yell at me.
Why?
Just kidding. I think that's an even better idea. I love it. And thank you so much for your involvement in this. It's one of the best causes out there. And I think you made the absolute best point for me. We have a ton of parkland out here. We have a ton of already dedicated wildlife refuge that this is an easy solution. And I have a distinct feeling that you might be our representative from the city of Carver, and we'll be in touch with you. Does Mr. Merrick have your contact information?
I don't think so.
We need to get it.
Okay.
So if you can drop Mr. Merrick, or if you could, Vicki, do you have the, okay, awesome. We'll be in touch with you, and then we'll try to make that an official document. And
I want to thank you for bringing this
absolutely.
to our attention.
Thank you.
Really good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Well done. All right, we have no reports, we have no public hearings. Could I please entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are no unfinished business. Mr. Boyum, let's move to 9.1, Bid Award 2017 Improvement Project. You opened bids on last Thursday.
We did. We ended up having 3 bidders.
I like the way you kind of have that going on. We had 3 bidders.
We had a lot of plan holders, but only 3 people said that they wanted to give a bid, which is good. We got very competitive bids on the project, and as you can see in your packet and as on the PowerPoint, we had 3 bids that ranged in price from $2,078,870 to $2,122,793.26, and that compares favorably to our engineer's estimate of $2.3 million for the total base bid. Our estimate for the parking lot on 3rd Street, which is alternate number 1, was around $42,000, and the low bidder's bid on that was $45,533.45. The alternate, once again, was the 3rd Street West parking lot. Here's a graphic that shows the parking lot between 3rd Street West and the alley. The little blue line is Spring Creek on the right side, and Jorgensen is over on the very left side. So this is the parking lot that the council had discussed whether they would do it or not, and wanted to see how the bids turned out on the project. And so we'll can answer any questions the council may have on that part of the project after I'm done. The 3rd Street Bridge, as you remember, there were some issues with washing that was occurring at that culvert through the masonry wall on the south side of the 3rd Street Bridge. And so one of the options that we had proposed was to remove part of that old wing wall that was cracking and moving, etc. And so this drawing is what we showed at a previous council work session or meeting, talking about the 3rd Street Bridge improvements. And, we did get pricing for that removal. I think the low bid was around $12,000 for that removing of the wing wall on the south side of 3rd Street. The north side wing wall would stay as is. And so we have the council, the council actions. We have 2 resolutions. One, depending on if you decide to, it's just like moving on me. I'm going to set it over there so it doesn't take off. Did you know that Amanda and my wife and her mom worked together for a while? And so we were at a recent birthday party, and I saw Amanda there and said hi to her, and all of a sudden she's here, and I said, Amanda, what are you doing here? And she did a very nice job once again on that.
Kids grow up, Dan.
Yes.
Which means you're getting older.
I'm getting older. So yeah, we have the 2 options as it relates to the resolution. If you wanted to go with the 3rd Street parking lot, then the total cost of the adjusted total base bid would be $2,124,404.07. If not, the total base bid from GMH Asphalt Corporation would be $2,078,870.62. So I can open it up to any questions now.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Boehm? As always, you do a fine job making that very clear to us. Does anybody want to converse about the 3rd Street parking lot with the project?
I think with the situation with the city hall and the lack of parking in downtown, I think we should go with the parking lot.
I absolutely agree.
I 100% disagree.
I'm inclined to agree that we need a parking lot downtown.
Brent, excuse me, what did we purchase that parcel for?
13,
14?
Remember?
13 something.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay,
It's between 13 and 15.
okay.
I'll look it up.
And then, does that include the assessment price?
The price is, there's a flat price for the land, and then we'd pay off the assessment. We haven't closed on the property yet.
Okay, but that assessment would be above and beyond the purchase price?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sensing that you may want to continue to talk about this.
Does anyone else have any other comments before I do? I just don't think it's necessary at this time. I really don't. And we purchased it, it's ours, but there's a chance in the future if it is needed. I haven't seen that downtown that we are completely out of parking. The day uses that we have don't necessarily conflict with the night uses that we have. And if people have to walk 3 blocks somewhere, I think we're all able to manage 3 blocks. We have an expectation in a small town that we're going to be pulled right up to the front door. I just don't think that we have a need to spend that money, because not only are we purchasing the property, we're paying the assessment, now we're adding this on. Yes, there's some cost savings that it comes out at the same time that we're doing another project. I don't see that it's needed yet. There's tall trees that are on that lot. They're maybe not, oak trees that we would normally save in a development, but it is still a buffer to the downtown residents who sit 1 block off of the businesses that we have on Broadway.
I'd like to add something.
Yeah, go.
I actually think we have always been short of parking. I think with the fact that we are going to build a bigger city hall downtown, it would be a good place for city hall employees to park. We always have needed parking. So to me, especially, I was very heartened to see that the bids came in lower for this total project, which made me think, this is a no-brainer for me. We should build that parking lot. But that's what I think.
For me, it kind of comes down to a commitment to downtown and a commitment to the businesses and the residents who live downtown. I think in order to have a really vibrant downtown and looking forward to the new Village Hall, just having enough parking to accommodate all the folks that we hope to draw to that area. So that's where I'm sitting.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 125-17 to accept the bid from GMH Asphalt Corporation for the adjusted total bid price of $2,124,404.07.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, council?
Please.
On the Ofter-Heidi property, the purchase price is $14,000. In addition to that, the city would be paying off an impending assessment of $8,300.
So it's 22,300.
So what are we looking at for the total for this parking lot then? Does anyone have a calculator?
22,000 plus 43.
65,000.
And how many spots?
10.
Thank you. It's like a park and ride. 65, actually, park and ride is more than 6,500 a spot. Especially when you build a transit station with, you could put a skyscraper on. Not to bring that up again. All right, any other discussion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Do we need a roll call?
Councilmember Henry.
Aye.
Councilmember Mock.
Nay.
Mayor Webb.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe.
Aye.
All right, moving on. Thank you all. Moving on. Mr. Harris, acquisition. Wow, it's good to see you here again, Mr. Harris. Love your tie. Looking good.
Been a while.
All right, it has been a while. Are you still an attorney?
I am.
Outstanding.
I picked up a name tag today.
Nice. You look good like that. Oh, I have one too.
I'm here tonight to talk about the acquisition of a small easement for the extension of Green Ash Drive to the east into what we all commonly refer to as the Butler property. There is a lengthy memorandum, a couple of supporting memorandums, and a resolution for your consideration tonight, which would authorize the council to commence eminent domain condemnation in order to acquire that easement. I'm here tonight to tell you, or to recommend to you, that you not adopt that resolution. The city, for many years, has retained an acquisition specialist by the name of Dan Wilson, an individual used by communities throughout the metro area to negotiate with property owners. When the city,
He's such a good guy.
he's a very good guy, very, very experienced, used throughout the metro area. And because Dan's already started tonight, I'll tell you, he's a local guy. He used to be an assistant administrator in Waconia in 1979. But
I was 10.
I'll just let it pass. When the city became aware that this easement was necessary, in the normal process, the city retained the appraisal firm of Patchen, Messner, and Dodd, Jason Messner, who the city uses regularly to appraise properties. They came up with an appraisal that the value of the easement was $1,500. The situation is a little bit complicated because the property was recently sold on a contract for deed. Gilbert Development sold their interest to an individual by the name of Charles Madsen. As Mr. Wilson was negotiating with the parties, the Gilbert Development representative, who is the fee owner and one of the two people we would need to sign the easement, expressed some umbrage that the city might consider using eminent domain to acquire this easement. Mr. Madsen, the contract vendee, reviewed the appraisal, talked to Mr. Wilson, thought the $1,500 offer was reasonable. The Gilbert Development people said what they've told Mr. Wilson is, okay, we think that's Madsen's call. Because the fee owner was a little put off that the city would consider using eminent domain, and candidly, because the city of Carver rarely condemns property. I mean, in all my years of working with you, I can count the times you condemn something on one hand and have a couple of fingers left. My recommendation is for tonight that you not adopt the resolution, just don't take any action on it, and adopt a motion approving the city paying $1,500 for the easement. We'll go see if in the next couple of weeks we can get the easement wrapped up, get both the contract vendee and the vendor to sign it. We have to get a release from a mortgagee, and then the issue is resolved without the city acting under the threat of condemnation. And I'm just concerned that the fee owner might get a little miffed if the city adopts a condemnation resolution, and he's already told Dan Wilson that they'll agree to this. So, adopting a resolution when our negotiation specialist has preliminary and tentative terms subject to your approval seems a little heavy-handed to me.
So you always talk way above me. Here's what I'm hearing. You're asking for a resolution tonight to approve you're asking us to not take action and post.
Do not take action on the resolution that's in the packet that was put in the packet.
Are you asking us to approve the 1,500?
And then I'm asking the council to adopt a motion approving the payment of $1,500 for the easement for the extension of Green Ash Drive and the utilities.
I have a question.
Please.
Okay, how did we get to the point of thinking about eminent domain? I can't remember, because the owner of the property wanted like an exorbitant amount of money.
Exorbitant.
I mean, the Green Ash Drive needs to be extended for the orderly development of the property to the east. The property to the east is coming up under development. The developer of the property to the east couldn't come to terms. The city, for very legitimate public safety needs that street extended. And because there were difficulties coming to terms with the owner, I prepared a memorandum to you outlining it and a resolution. Since I've done that, I think late last week, Mr. Wilson came to terms with the property.
Okay.
And so they're
But
just,
I mean,
we're
I
running
kind
on
of want
parallel,
the-
we're running on parallel paths.
I want the people who are watching this meeting to know that eminent
Right.
domain is not our first card.
No,
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at.
no.
Yeah.
The city always tries to negotiate first. The negotiations
did.
were bogging down.
Yeah, okay.
And then why this was in play and these materials were put together last week, Mr. Wilson was able to come to an oral understanding for the acquisition of the easement.
Okay. I'll make a motion that the city offer the property owner $1,500 for the easement.
And I will second that. Thank you, Larry.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Larry, that's it. That hits
That's
where,
sufficient?
that's where we need to be?
That's sufficient.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Do we need to take any motion to delay the previous one?
No, there's
Just that we're
nothing.
not taking any
It's an agenda item. You're just not taking any action
Okay.
on it. If we don't, if we can't get the easement issue resolved, very likely I'll be coming back to you with that resolution and the memorandum again.
Still there.
Still there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Let's move on to 9.3, Ms. Nash, on the Olson property / Hartman Communities annexation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is a resolution, number 12417, designating certain property located in our orderly annexation area as in need of immediate orderly annexation. This property is approximately 76 acres. It consists of 2 parcels, generally located on the west side of County Road 11, north side of Dahlgren Road, kind of situated between the Copper Hills neighborhood and Dahlgren Road. The Westwood professionals provided the city with a petition for annexation that was signed by the property owners back in April, and they also paid the taxation reimbursement fee to the township. We verified that all conditions of the orderly annexation agreement have been met and are asking you to adopt this resolution this evening. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
My only question is, I just want to make sure that the $36,015 was paid to the township and you have a receipt.
It was, it was paid to the township. I have verification from the township that they received it.
Perfect, that's the main thing. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Nash? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 124-17, designating certain property located in the orderly annexation area of Dahlgren Township as in need of immediate orderly annexation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. It's probably what you wanted to hear. Outstanding. Let's move on.
Your own smiles, Terry.
Oh, there's more. There's more. 9.4, certificate of appropriateness, ordinance amendment. Mr. Pistolka, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're looking for an adoption of ordinance 04-2017, which allows staff to approve routine and small projects within our historic district. We brought this to you guys back on May 1st at your work session. Then we brought it to our May 9th HPC meeting, which we had a 4-to-1 vote approving it. Recommendation, to approve. So what the ordinance is, in a sense, does, it changes. Right now, ordinance, the HPC has to give staff authority to approve these simple routine projects over the counter. What this will do is give our city manager that authority and give it to the building official to approve these routine, simple projects. So,
What was the concern of the one objector to it?
He's an attorney.
he's an attorney, yes. That, and I think he felt that with the verbiage, it was giving too much authority to one position.
So it wasn't the idea of doing it, it was?
It was the first part there where it says the city manager determines. So I think that was just the sticking point there with some of that language.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is designed to streamline the
Process.
for homeowners so the weekend warriors can actually do it correctly.
Well, that and, we'll still bring back all the bigger projects that have to deal with the structure itself, but simple patios, sidewalks, things like that.
So you're going to provide the city manager with really good information so he doesn't do it wrong, right?
I'll try.
Okay.
But I think the goal was that if you come before and ask a question and it's something simple, right now, everybody has to wait until the next HPC meeting to get it recommended or approved, and this allows homeowners to get going on it.
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Pistolka?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 04-2017, amending section 2-366 of the Carver City Code relating to the Heritage Preservation Commission and a certificate of appropriateness.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are
Thanks,
now,
Mark.
pardon me? Oh,
Said
thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, well done as always. We are now to City Council Communications. Monroe.
Courtney and I attended the Carver County's, emergency management, what was it, like a?
The elected and senior officials' roles and responsibilities in disaster situations.
Yes, and Courtney took
that the
notes,
soft
so
copy?
I'm going to let her talk about it. It actually was an incredible, I thought it was a very informative and good informational session.
Very well attended.
I remembered actually a lot of it from the last time I went to one like 15 years ago. But it was good to kind of refresh that.
Yeah, it was,
Ms. Johnson.
it was,
Say Cindy and I.
so last Thursday night, Cindy and I attended the training, and it was really good. It was, Director Kelly?
Yeah,
Who
Joe
came
Kelly.
in and gave the training himself, and just really good, kind of more or less talking about how elected officials need to stay in their lane in an emergency situation, but that was good. The only other things that I have is that there is a planning commission Thursday night and then a Carver Business Council meeting coming up on Friday morning.
Ms. Mock.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
We had our first HPC meeting of 2017 last week, so Mark is the liaison, the staff liaison, and we did talk about the letter of appropriateness. Appropriate, yes. And then we did a tour of 316 3rd Street West and looked at the conditions of that home. Oh. It was very interesting. It is in a state of disrepair. The main building structurally seems square, but that is going to be up to the homeowner to decide what he wants to do. He came to the meeting and, he said that he felt, well, he wasn't opposed to having it rehabbed, to having someone rehab it. It could be torn down as well, but he was open to having it rehabbed. It is on the historic registry, so it would need some loving care, though.
Yeah, and some dough. Is that it, Ms. Mock?
That is it.
Hank?
Got nothing?
Mr. Merrick?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So in front of you at the dais, I laid out a draft action plan for the City Hall project with 2 attachments, one being a proposal from Leo A. Daly for architectural services and another kind of a general handout from Kraus Anderson comparing construction management and general contracting services. But I'll direct you to the memo dated May 15th, which the subject is Broadway City Hall project draft action plan. So this is an attempt with very broad strokes to kind of walk a path of a very probably detail-oriented project, but wanted to get some, initial feedback from the City Council on process, timing, kind of feel of the project. And so tonight, one meeting, looking at that draft action plan, but should the City Council want to take that next step, consider adopting that next, consider adopting the action plan at the next meeting. And I would recommend the very first step is taking a look at architectural services. Now, what you see in your packet is a continuation of using the firm Leo A. Daly with Sidney McCleary as the lead. The city isn't required for professional services to get multiple proposals. You do have the option to do that. One of the things that you'll note when looking at, if I'll reference you to page 5 of their proposal, on the bottom half they kind of list out phasing of the project and the compensation directed toward that. Now, if you think about the elementary school and their process, they approved the bond and then did a lot of their design work after the bond was approved. I think the city would be in a better position if you did a lot of that design work up front, because I think I get the sense that the community wants kind of to see the building, or at least the renderings and how the building would flow in a more detailed fashion. So that takes you through pre-design, schematic design, and design development. That would get you to that phase, which is roughly about $150,000. Then you'd interrupt that process, and I can get back to that, but how that process would function. But at your next meeting, I think that's June 5th. I have June 1st here, but June 5th, considering that proposal for architectural services, or if you wanted to give me feedback tonight, if you were looking at other bids or other proposals for architectural services, we could certainly have that prepared. The second piece, that's the bigger 11 by 17 handout, is the construction management and general contracting services. And that's not a decision that you have to make immediately, but the front end of it is something that I like to discuss with the council, in that we don't have a professional contractor on staff, and so a lot like we have a legal professional in planning and engineering, as we develop our building committee, to have somebody with contract management skills that can kind of be at those building committee meetings to talk about how certain adds to the building might impact pricing. Basically, a kind of a consultant kind of arrangement would be very helpful to our process. As you get forward into the kind of the contract setting, I think the general contractor, which most people are familiar with, kind of functions a lot like our street project. You have one general contractor, they get the subs, you have one contract. On a construction management piece, you have a construction manager, and the bids are put together in a series of kind of bid packages. But then for each one of those contractors, you have a contract with that contractor. So there's some pros and cons to that, and when we get to that point, I'll reach out to the city attorney. We'll want to have a conversation about the pros and cons of general contracting versus construction management and have that discussion with the council. But this handout gives you kind of a general overview of that, but I think at a minimum it'd be helpful to have that as a step, as having basically a contracting consultant sit in on the design review. Prior to getting into that design.
Brent, could I just interrupt really quickly? And also, in my opinion, what that does is it allows the construction manager to relatively keep the architect or whoever's helping design the building in check, as well as kind of a checks and balance for that in terms of price and what's needed and what's not needed.
Right, and their fee arrangement is just based on number of meetings, so we could go to a number of different professionals. It doesn't necessarily need to be Kraus Anderson. I've also reached out to Voss Construction out of Green Isle. I've had some experience with them, and they're involved with construction management and do great work. But it's basically a price per meeting involvement. But prior to that, once you selected your architect, what we've scheduled out is a pre-design session just with the city council. And that would get at some of the policy issues that we've kind of discussed here and there throughout the process of whether or not to have a council chambers in the building, the size of the community room, whether or not it's a commercial kitchen or a caterer's kitchen, and having the architect there rather than just relying on my kind of general knowledge or the building official's general knowledge, is having the architect there to have some give and take and question answering regarding what happens if you do this and what are the requirements if you do that. From there, once the kind of council sets those kind of parameters or guidelines, we'd recommend a kind of a pre-design session with 30 community stakeholders. We'd ask each city council member to recommend 3 names, and then staff would come up with the additional 15, making a group of 30. I got the idea from the school district. Once they had their bond approved, they did a series of meetings where they invited community stakeholders in, using the school board's kind of general direction, and talked about how the space should be and flow and kind of the design, etc. But then getting into the building design and development, so once those 2 sessions are had, and that building committee would be informed by the city council's kind of foundation of the building parameters, and then also the stakeholders group, there'd be a building committee made up of staff and the construction management team and the architect. And initially I'd thought about including council members. My concern is when you put 2 council members into that group, it really limits the ability of the other 3 council members to have an influence on that process, giving kind of the 2 a higher degree of influence of process. And frankly, it keeps us away from anything that, Victoria got involved with having 2 council members on a building committee. It's staff driven based on the recommendations given from council and the community stakeholders. And then we would do regular updates with the city council on progress and check-ins at whatever rate that you felt comfortable with, that you feel like you would need in order to influence that process. So the building committee initially, I had myself, Mark Pistolka, Vicky Sanzaiden, Brian Skoke, Diane Schwalbe, the construction manager and architect. So that roughly takes about 6 months, and then we would
Pick it up.
get to the first part of the year, and that's where we do kind of the official design again, do some resident engagement, miscellaneous approvals, perhaps taking it to the HPC, Planning Commission, discussing financing and all the processes depending upon the financing mechanism that you chose, public hearings, etc., that might be required. And then I think the balance of the document is self-explanatory, creating construction documents. One of the pieces that I will point out, we were proposing that we'd relocate City Hall offices to Carver Place or Peter Thiesfeld's building next to Carver Flowers. Mark and I went through that building, talked to Vicki as well, and feel like we could fit all our administrative staff in there. We'd have to meet here at the council chambers for meetings. We looked at the fire station, but just because of the amount of traffic on Jonathan Carver Parkway and the disruption that I think it would occur up at that parking lot, and just the familiarity of being downtown with people having access, we thought we'd be better off keeping it downtown, and so that was.
How much smaller is that space than your current facility?
It's about half this. It's about 800 square feet. We're in 1,600, but we measured it. We measured the cubicles.
Tape it out.
We taped it out, but it has a nice bathroom. It has a kitchenette.
Air conditioning, and
we'd have to store some of our cabinets in some type of storage facility, etc. But I think as far as function and ease of use for the residents, it'll be far superior to the fire station. Thinking about payloaders and fire trucks leaving, and there's limited parking at the fire station public services building already. So again, this is a very broad overview. It's a kind of a first draft crack at this, and so I wanted to get some feedback from the council prior to bringing it to a regular meeting for consideration.
I like it all. I would like to condense it, but I've told you that 14, 15 times already. I'd like to condense it. I'd love to see us break ground, not in November of 2018, but in June or July. Just me.
I agree.
Well, yeah, the faster the better, but I have just a concern about just going ahead and using Leo Daly without getting some sort of price on somebody else. I mean, I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to see if we can find, services similar for less money.
For me, I thought about that myself, but the familiarity and the comfort level that I had with Leo A. Daly, in my opinion, whether we find somebody cheaper, I don't know that we would have that. I'm not willing to risk that relationship.
I agree with Cindy. I think we should, if we're going to go that route, we should price out a few.
Terry, an architect? You said 6 to 8 months, just putting together a team and then starting the arduous process of bringing a task force of 30 people together again. Can we streamline that?
Yeah, it won't take that long to put that together. The 6 months, I agree on building design and development could be kind of heavy, but I made that heavy, because it is, this is a once in a several generation type of project, and I
You
wanted
want
to
to
make
dot all
sure
your
that
I's,
there was
cross all your
enough time
T's. I
that we
get it.
didn't feel like, the project is 3 months behind already. So there's some built-in.
It's a year behind.
There's some built-in time, and so a lot of this will happen at the rate that the council and the community and kind of the idea is ready to kind of grow, if you will. And so with that might come something where you're ready to go in, a year's time, and then everything can be expedited. And I can reflect some of that, but as a piece on the construction documents, I have 6 months. That can get done in 3 months, but the state has to review those drawings, and their current timeline for review is 8 to 12 weeks. And so some of that, is going to have to be.
We can affect at what point they get the drawings and the approvals.
Correct. I mean, the nice part is the community and the council and task force have done a lot of work on talking about the type of building, the location as said, and so a lot of those things that might be difficult to manage or maneuver around or discuss have been agreed to.
Well, I think it all falls, I'm going to argue with you a little bit and say that the majority of it falls on the construction management team. I think we're going to make the decision on what specs in terms of city council. Does city council dais go in there? Does it stay here? What size of a room? But then you guys go. I don't think we have a say in that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we approve the plans and we go forward. But I mean, that's as fast as you guys can go.
Yeah, I think the two biggest pieces are going to be council chambers in or out and kind of the function of that community space, whether that's commercial or caterer's kitchen.
I mean, yeah, and that's kind of one that should be figured out like sooner rather than later.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, correct, that would be the very first step, is the council would say, this is what we want to have in there, you'd vote on that, and so when we got to the community stakeholder piece, that wouldn't be a discussion item, it would be, this is how the council wants the building to function, now give us ideas about design and look and flow, how you'd use the building.
With this budget.
You know, storage, but that's why it's going to be important for the council to lead in on that and then say this is how it's going to be. And here's your kind of marching orders, and then that community stakeholder group creates from those sets of guidelines or from that set of guidelines.
So the sooner we get to that, the sooner we get going.
Yeah, so we can have everything ready to go as far as, I mean, the biggest piece will be bringing on that architectural firm to lead those first two pieces and then getting right into the design development.
I'm more than comfortable. Actually, I encourage Leo Daly, so.
I see where you're coming from with the familiarity with Leo A. Daly, but I too would like to just see what some other options are, and maybe they come back that Leo A. Daly is the most competitive, or if, even if they don't.
Are you looking for the
just knowing-
cheapest, or are you looking for the best? I think
Wait
you
a
need.
minute, I think I'm looking
you
for
need-
knowing what else is out there and seeing what the other options are.
But Leo
Maybe-
Daly in their first studies did not do the rebuild of City Hall there, so that's not information.
That's true, it wasn't an option.
It wasn't an option, so if we're looking at Leo Daly, they didn't have that information already, so I think we're starting kind of from a blank slate now. So I would like to see some other,
Well, let's get on that.
Yeah, just see what the options are, and then if we decide to go with Leo A. Daly and they're, not necessarily the cheapest, then it's a conscious decision because of their familiarity and our history with them.
Do we need a motion to adopt this?
Don't, I'll bring it to your
Correction?
next regular meeting.
I think you get a sense, and while we are going to argue about a ton of stuff, I think you get a sense that there's a unanimous feeling amongst the council to get faster than slower. Okay. I just assumed that, unless anyone else has.
you are correct, sir.
Okay. The only thing I have to add, are you done, Mr. Merrick? Mr. Harris, would you like to add anything? Nice. Ms. Nash? Daniel? The only thing I'd like to add is to kind of piggyback on Ms. Monroe's and Ms. Johnson's. Attending the emergency management system, I think we need to do our own again and provide a document that states that, I'll start the process. I think Brian Skoke should be our emergency services manager. And then identifying what roles council plays as well as what roles in the event of either natural disaster, terrorist disaster, whatever it might be, so that we're at least on the same page. It's been a long time since we've done that. I'd like to see that on some further agenda. Other than that, I have nothing.
To adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. You ever see a gavel like that? Ooh.